Hi, my name is Jack Broering. I'm a retired engineer. I am going to show you today how to use Google Sheets to model some data. I found it quite interesting that the data that's being released from the state of Ohio on the coronavirus cases is somewhat exponential, and so I thought it would be a good exercise to model that using Google Sheets. So the first thing I want to do is to access I've got a data set built, and what I'm going to do is provide you a link so that you can actually copy the data. If you go to bit.ly, bit.ly, and then the link is Ohio corona data. You can see here at the top. I'll just let that on the screen for just a second so that you can copy it. So bit.ly/Ohio-corona-data. So on this particular website, I've created a data set, and I'll keep this up to date as time goes on, because this I find interesting to model it on a day-to-day basis. Now, if you want to see this data in a data set, you can just click on this little link right here, and it'll take you right to that. Now, what I want you to do is to copy this data. I've got up through March 24th, and I'm just going to hit a Control-C here to copy that. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my Google Drive. And I've created a folder in Google Drive, and we'll just navigate to that. I'm going to assume that you're somewhat familiar with Google Drive. So I've got a coronavirus modeling folder, and we'll just open this up. Now, I don't have any files in this particular folder, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a Google Sheet. And then I'm just going to paste that data into this Google Sheet. And we'll make it look a little nicer. We'll put some borders around the data. Okay, so now I'll give it a name here. I'm going to call it Demo Modeling Ohio Corona Data. Okay, so we're ready to start modeling. Now, when I say modeling, we're really trying to fit an equation to this data. So the first thing we want to do is plot this data. Now, rather than use the date as my x, I'm going to use I call it days from start here as my x. My y value is the actual number of coronavirus cases that the state of Ohio has been releasing on a daily basis during the governor's news conference. So we'll just highlight that data, click on Insert, and then click on Chart, and it'll draw a chart, and we can take that chart and we can move it over here. Well, let's move it down here just a little bit. But anyhow, it shows a line chart. Now, what I want to do for this modeling exercise is to use a scatter plot. So I'm going to select scatter plot, and notice over here I've got a number of selections here and so on. So now I've got the X is the days from start, Y is the coronavirus cases. If I want, I could do a number of things to this. Let's customize it a little bit. We can customize it by what I've done here is I've selected Customize under the Series option here in the chart editor. Okay, so one of the things I could do is put labels on it so I know what those values are. Now notice it didn't put one here, but that's because our axis over here isn't high enough, and I'm not going to do that right now. What I'd like to show you is some other options that you have here. You can put these data labels on. You can put a trend line on, which is really what we're interested in. So I'm going to put a trend line on. Now, the default is a linear fit, and if you look at that, notice it doesn't really go through all the data points. So let's change that to exponential. Okay, you see that fits a lot better in this particular case. Okay, now there's a box here that says label on it. We're going to select that, and I'm going to click use equation. So now what I've got is I've got equation for this line. Okay, and I also want to show how good the fit is. R squared is a measure of the fit of the equation to the data, so I'm going to show that. So it put that right here, this R squared value of 0.993. The closer this value is to 1, the better the fit. So you can see that's a pretty good fit in this particular case. So we could use it for predicting. So let's use that equation to predict values. So we'll create another column here, and we'll call that prediction. And I'm going to center my data. I'm going to also put borders around it. So to type the equation in, you start with an equal sign, and the equation is 14.1 times, and the Excel or a Google Sheet function in this case is exp for exponential, and the equation or the superscript on this particular one is 0.312 times, and I'm going to click over here on days. So now you see our equation. We'll look up here. So we've got 14.1 times exp, and in parentheses I've got 0.312 times the number of days. So I'm going to hit the enter key, and so it suggests that the prediction is 19.26 days versus 19.26 cases versus the actual value of 13. So it's not real close. But let's copy that down. If I highlight this entire column and hold my control key down and press the letter D, it'll copy that formula down. Okay, and I don't need so many decimal places, so I'm just going to click this decrease decimal places icon up here, and we'll just take that down. So now you can start to look and see how it compares. Okay, so it doesn't compare too badly. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to say, well, how long or how many cases might there be out into the future? Now remember, this is just a prediction based on this data, and based on all of the things that have gone on. The governor has taken a lot of measures to slow this down, so what I would expect that over time this model would not fit very well. But for the purposes of this exercise, let's just figure out how many data points or how many cases there will be in 30 days. So what we can do is I'm just going to copy this, Control C, Control V. So what that suggests is that at 30 days from the 13th, or about a month from the 13th, so that'd be about the middle of April, we might have this many cases. Now I would expect that because of all the measures that are being taken, that this will not get this high this quickly, because the intent of doing all the social distancing and so on, it will slow this down. So I'm going to take that back out of there. So that's the way to model the data. You could use different equation types in this. If you want to change any of these settings on this graph, simply double click on the particular area. So if you want to change put in a minimum and maximum value that are different than what's shown here, you can enter those values and so on with this axis as well. So there you have it. Thanks for listening.